How did you become the one person to break your family's oldest tradition? My family had a rule that every daughter was expected to follow without a single question. At 22, you married the man your father selected. Not suggested, selected. My grandmother did it. My mother did it. My two aunts did it. Every woman married into a, quote, respectable family, which always meant a wealthy one. And in return, the woman was expected to be quiet, agreeable, and grateful. That was the deal. Passed down like an heirloom. Nobody questioned it, because the women in my family talked about their marriages the way people talk about surviving a long winter. Like endurance itself was the prize. My mother used to tell me, romance is for songs, security is for life, which always sounded to me like something you say to convince yourself. When I turned 21, the dinners began. My father would invite the sons of his business contacts, and I would be brought out and presented like a closing offer. Sit straight, laugh softly, do not talk about your opinions, they make men nervous. At one of these dinners, a man asked my father whether I, quote, kept a clean home, before he asked me a single question about myself, and my father answered for me, proudly. That was the night something in me went cold and quiet, because I finally understood this was not heritage. It was a sale with very good lighting. Then I met Idris completely by accident. I knocked an entire tray of drinks onto him at a friend's gallery opening and nearly died of embarrassment. But instead of getting angry, he just laughed and asked if I was all right, because apparently I looked far more horrified than he did. And for the first time in my life, I had a real conversation with a man who treated me like a person and not a future household appliance. We dated in secret for almost a year. I knew my parents would never accept him, because Idris was not wealthy, came from no important name, and worst of all in their eyes, he kept asking me what I thought about things. So when my father finally introduced me to the man he had chosen, I already knew. But I stayed quiet, because I wanted proof of what this really was, and I got it sooner than I expected. One night I came downstairs for water and overheard my father on the phone with my uncle. He said, once the marriage is signed, the partnership is locked, and after that, her opinions are not a factor. I felt genuinely sick, not heartbroken, not even surprised, just disgusted, because they were not protecting culture or family. The daughters were collateral. So in that dark hallway, I made a decision. I would be the last woman this tradition ever got to touch. For the next month, I played the role flawlessly. I went to dress fittings. I smiled in engagement photos. I let my mother cry happy tears. Meanwhile, Idris and I quietly planned everything down to the hour. The night before the wedding, I packed 2 suitcases and left them in my best friend's trunk. The ceremony was enormous. Hundreds of guests, a venue my father clearly chose to impress his partners, my mother glowing, my father wearing the smug look of a man closing the biggest deal of his career. And right as the doors opened for me to walk down the aisle, I stopped. I turned around, and I handed my bouquet to my youngest cousin, who is 9 years old and was watching the whole thing with wide eyes. Then I looked directly at my father, across that entire silent room, and I said, she is going to grow up knowing she is allowed to say no. And then I walked out. Not ran. Walked. Idris was waiting in the parking lot in a car that barely started, and I swear getting into it was the happiest moment of my life. My father called 11 times that night. My mother left voicemails about the shame I had brought on the family name. My grandmother mailed me a letter saying I had spat on generations of women before me. But 3 weeks later, my 9-year-old cousin found a way to message me, and what she sent is still saved on my phone. She wrote, I did not know a girl was allowed to leave until I watched you do it.